I was never asked to kill or attack anybody else. I tried to stay in my cell and reading and writing and stay away from all the drugs, drama and the violence. Yep.
How many times did your parents visit you?
I was blessed because a lot of the prisoners had been disowned by their parents because of repeated involvement in drugs and stuff like that. My parents and my sister, I got a visit at least once a year from my family. And that really helped me psychologically. All the support and love that they gave me really helped me deal with it. And the white?
Are we allowed to know T-Bone's real name?
T-Bone's real name is Tim. Yes. On the end?
What was your initial reaction when T-Bone entered your cell?
When T-Bone first entered my cell, because he's black, it was unusual because of the rules of racial division. And because he's so big, I was a bit scared, to be honest. And once he started to talk to me, and he was asking about English history and stuff like that, he studied military history and he was really interested in the battles of the Romans and all this kind of stuff. He just came across as a charming and intelligent person. And the racism, it's big time in the prison. And he'd come over and talk to me in my cell, and one night he said he was going to walk around the yard. And I said, well, can I walk around the yard with you? And he goes, no, it'll cause trouble, with the gangs, because you're white and that. And I said, well, look, you're the biggest guy on the yard. If you're not scared, I'm not going to be scared. And he laughed. He laughed. He says, all right, come on then. And we walked around the yard, and people were calling us names, like they was calling us a couple and all this stuff. But we just laughed back at them. And the only way this racism can be stopped is if people show how stupid it is, and that's what we were trying to do that night. Yep.
So does that mean you can't go into any other country except in
I'm banned from America for life, and then I learned from my Canadian publisher I can't go to Canada, and then I learned from Japan when I got asked to go speak in Japan I can't go into Japan. So once you've got a criminal record on the computer system, it goes all over the world. I've got an Interpol record, and as far as I'm aware right now I can only go into Europe. But I'm gonna, perhaps if I got a cruise, then at least, rather than save up a load of money and get on a flight somewhere and get sent back, if I go on a cruise, at least if they kick me out, I can get back on the boat. So that is my solution now to this. I think I'm going to just save up and go on a cruise. Yeah.
What emotions went through your head when the SWAT team came to your house?
Oh my God, when that SWAT team smashed my door down, you see all of the police in the Darth Vader outfits just fan out with the fully automatic weapons pointed at you. You just think, if they open up right now, your life is over in seconds. You're just absolutely terrified, and you're yelling, get on the ground, get down on the ground. So you basically just fall on the ground and they come and crush you. Yeah. Yes?
Did you ever get in trouble for writing about the prison?
Writing about the prison, because blogs were new back then, and it took a while for the prison administration to catch up with it. In the remand jail, my mum didn't want us to do it because she knew about the guards murdering the prisoners, the mentally ill prisoners, the blind prisoners, stuff like that. So that's why we thought, all right, we'll put it under the name John for John's Jail Journal. And we kept my name secret while I was in that remand jail because it was so dangerous. Once I was moving over to the prison system, we felt comparatively safer because in the prison system, the guards weren't routinely murdering the prisoners. It was actually the other way around. Each building was named after a guard who had been murdered by the prisoners. And my name did come out, and guards did have a problem with it. Some come in and said they found it funny to read through a prisoner's eyes and stuff like that. But nothing really heavy came down on me from the admin. But since then, they have classified my blog and all my books as a threat to the security institution. They've tried to ban the prisoners from accessing them. At the back.
How did the guards actually punish prisoners?
How do the guards punish prisoners? Okay, if a guard wants to punish a prisoner, they know all the prisoners are on drugs. So what they do is they threaten, or they will actually P-test that person. And when that person is P-tested, they know that person will test positive for drugs. And when that person tests positive for drugs, they then lose their privileges, such as they can't buy stuff from the inmate store, and they can't have their girlfriends, wives, stuff like that come and visit them for a certain period of time. So that threatening to P-test the prisoner is the carrot and the stick. And if you get disciplinary sanctions like that, you lose what's called good time, which means they can actually hold on to you for a bit longer before you're released, and stuff like that as well. Yeah?
Did you get the
inmate taken up for writing like in prison, by the prison?
If you're writing in prison, it is considered suspicious by the gangs, especially. It's a dangerous occupation, actually. Sometimes prisoners would come and run into my cell and say, so-and-so just told me you're writing about me and putting stories on the internet. And I hadn't, but the other person was just trying to cause us to have a fight. Because the mentality in prison, I was told early on, it's a high school mentality, but with deadly consequences. So I would say to everybody who was putting their stories on the internet, I would write down what I was putting on the internet about them. I would have them read it to make sure it was all okay, and usually they'd have some changes. And then I'd only put it on the internet finally, once all the changes had been made and been done with that person's permission. And I didn't use anybody's real names either. Yep.
Which two gangs had the biggest feud between them?
The gangs with the biggest feuds between them, oddly enough, the Mexicans and the Mexican Americans in the Arizona prison system have been at war since the 1990s. If they teamed up, they'd be the biggest gang, but they've had the longest running feud between them. In the corner,
Do you ever see anyone being killed?
you see people getting beat up and left for dead, and you don't know if they're dead or alive until it pops up on the news, months or years later. In my Banged Up Abroad episode, it shows the white gang smashing another white guy in the shower, and they leave him for dead. But what that episode didn't show, because it was on like 8, 9 at night on a big TV station, was the guy was on a stretcher, he looked dead, and there wasn't just blood coming out his head, there was yellow fluid, like brain stuff. Yeah, and that happened just within my first week or so of being in the jail. Yes?
Like after the SWAT team coming to get you, like how long did it take for the situation to dawn on you? Like what happened?
After the SWAT team came, and I got thrown in the jail where people's heads were getting bashed against toilets and bodies getting thrown around, it put me in a state of shock. And the gang members would come up to you and say, you've got to get that look of shock off your face or else you're going to get preyed on. And I was in that state of shock for about 6 months. But the seriousness of the situation dawned on me right away. And I realised if I didn't get legal help, I'd probably never get out. Because in America, your sentence is determined by how much money you've got and who your lawyer is. Yeah, so that was the priority then, once I realised how serious the situation was. Yeah.
Overall, mentally, do you think it affected your mum more than it affected you?
Overall, mentally, my mum had a nervous breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown in the jail as well. As well as it affecting me mentally adversely, though, I now credit it with strengthening me for life to deal with awkward situations and tricky people. And I had anxiety before I ended up in the jail, and that was one of the things that led me to taking drugs to try and make the anxiety go away. But having been in there for 6 years in all kinds of dangerous situations, it's kind of crushed a lot of that anxiety out of me. So it's actually done me good as well. Yes?
How do you think they got the drugs so easily into the prison?
The prisons are absolutely flooded with drugs. There's more drugs than anyone on the face of the earth. If you round people up that have mostly addiction issues, they're going to find a way to get the drugs in. Now, prisons and the police were started to arrest people who are hurting other people. Paedophiles, murderers, robbers, rapists. But what happened in the last year was drug laws caused prisons to just get full up with drug addicts. And guards bring the drugs in. A nurse was arrested bringing the drugs in for the Mexican mafia. People just bring them to the visit. The drugs have been in a baby's nappy wrapped in plastic. Prisoners distract the guards. While they're distracted, drugs are passed under the table to the prisoner, and the prisoner shoves them in his behind. A lot of the prisoners are involved in storing contraband in their behinds. That's how they do it. Because you're strip searched all the time in prison. And they've got to get the drugs packed through these strip searches. That's the only way. Yep.
Right at the start of that episode you showed us, do you know why the person was being beaten up?
The person being beaten up at the start of my Bang Up Abroad episode was a suspected child molester. And the gang rule is for child molesters, KOS, kill on sight. Yes?
Did your guard or you own any weapons at any time?
I did not actually own any weapons in the prison system, But if a situation went down, I knew where the shanks were buried on the rec field later on where I was incarcerated. The guards have weapons. They have taser guns and guns with live ammunition, and they're quick to taser down prisoners who are acting up. Yep.
Do you ever fear for your life?
Yeah, I feel for my life constantly. Anything can happen. One minute all the prisoners are playing cards, and next minute there's a race riot and they're all trying to kill each other. To this day, if I go to a restaurant, I prefer to sit with my back to the wall because of going through 6 years of thinking someone could just come up behind me and stab me in the belly or the kidney. Yeah.
Did you ever like a certain guard from the prison?
Did I ever
Like a certain guard from the prison?
like a certain guard? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't show much liking for the guards because then the prisoners are going to think you're a snitch. But there are guards who come in there, especially a guard if he's new, and they mean their intentions are good, and they actually relate to the prisoners, not like the prisoners are animals, which a lot of the guards are related to us like, and you do feel like you start to like that guard. But sadly, after 6 months to a year, the energy in the prison is so negative, those guards' faces harden, and they end up just not being likeable anymore, some of them. Yes?
Did you ever join a gang yourself?
No, I never joined a gang myself. To join a gang, you've got to beat people up or murder people to earn your tattoos. And I was trying to stay away from the drugs, the drama and the violence. I stayed in my cell, reading and writing, and I managed to actually read over 1,000 books in just under 6 years. Went on this fantastic journey through literature, read a lot of psychology and philosophy, and that helped me understand myself and my past behaviour and try and fix it. Very end in the white.
Did you ever consider taking drugs when you were in prison?
I never wanted to take drugs again after I saw in the jail the horror of what it led to. The road of drug use is very long. First time you take drugs, pleasure is high, pain is low. But what happens is every time you take drugs, you're always chasing that early pleasure, that early high, and the pain goes up a little bit and the pleasure goes down a little bit each time you do it, until over time the pain rises above the pleasure. And you can't stop because you're addicted. And you're killing yourself. And those guys in the jail were in that position. They were shooting up heroin, shooting up crystal meth, sharing dirty needles, 2/3 of hepatitis C, yellow jaundiced skin, teeth rotting out. They were going to die, and to get treatment for the hepatitis C, they had to stop taking the drugs. They were choosing to keep taking the drugs and die rather than get treatment and save their own lives. So did I want to keep going down that road? And then like those people, hell no. I started out over here as a student, thought it was fun, thought it was cool, seen Scarface, Pulp Fiction, Blow. SWAT team took me off that road halfway down it, probably saved my life. Those guys in the jail were at the end, near the end of that road. It made me ashamed, but I couldn't change the past, so I just placed to come out and share my story with people. White at the back, yep.
Did you have any jobs?
Yes, they do have jobs in the prison. You get paid anywhere from 10 cents to 50 cents an hour. And I tried to play the system to avoid work so that I could keep reading and learning and studying and turning it into the educational opportunity of a lifetime. On the end in the black.
How do they put tattoos on their names?
How do they put tattoos on themselves? Okay, my cellmate, who was the serial home invader torturer, he turned our cell into an illegal tattoo shop. He took the motor out of a Walkman, a little stereo, attached it to a guitar string, which he ran through a pen casing, and it had a needle on the end. And as the battery-powered motor went like that, the needle went like that, it vibrated, and that was his tattoo gun. He had tremendous art skills. You can't tell by looking at his body, but the prison does not give the prisoners anything to channel their energy into that's positive. They allow it to be drug and gang-infested mayhem because they know these guys don't stand a chance when they get out. They'll come right back. Each one of them is $50,000 a year in taxpayers' money per prisoner going to prison. That's what keeps them in business. Yes?
How long did you stay with him?
I was with the serial home invader torturer. I think it was less than 2 months.
That's really scary.
It was scary. I was, even though it was so hot, I was putting a blanket over me at night because I thought he was going to smash into me with that padlock in the sock that he threatened to kill me with. And it was hard to sleep around him. He was just, and I'd wake up and then he'd just go on and on and on and on at me about things, and yeah, it was a nightmare. At the back?
Did your friend
Can you yell it?
Did your friends in the prison take drugs?
No, my friends in the prison. No, actually, some of my friends in the prison probably did take drugs because I had over 100 people arrested with me, and some of them didn't. And because we got separated, I don't know exactly what happened to a lot of them. The ones who are off the drugs now, a lot of them are doing well. The ones who are still on the drugs, every year 1 or 2 of them dies. Yeah.
Did you ever witness anyone get raped?
Did I witness anyone get raped? I've just put a video out on YouTube about not dropping the soap in the shower and about that stuff. But it's too graphic to get into on this particular instance. Go on.
Did any of your inmates get murdered?
Did any other inmates get murdered? Or my mates? No, none of my mates got murdered. People get murdered mostly in prison over debts. Drug debts, gambling debts and stuff like that. And if they've got the wrong charges as well, like sex offenders. So my friends were smart enough to avoid most of that. Yep.
Would you say there's a lot of like differentiation between the movies and TV to like actual prison life?
Some movies and TV do prison dramatisations that are inaccurate. But some movies, like American History X, which showed the Aryan Brotherhood prison gang, where they're all working out and stuff like that, that was very realistic. So, have any of you guys watched Breaking Bad? Not Breaking Bad, sorry, Prison Break. Yeah. People like Teabag, you meet people like Teabag in prison. I met people like Teabag, booty bandits like that. So they're real. But then on the other hand, in Prison Break, 2 brothers are in the same prison. One's a bank robber and one's got the death penalty. They would not be housed in the same prison. It would be separate. Okay, on the end. No, if I hadn't got involved in drugs, I was worth 2 million in the stock market. I was stupid enough to get involved in drugs and lose everything. I'm probably worth about 10 million right now. Instead, I'm rebuilding my life from scratch. Yeah, go on.
How long did it take for you to get caught?
I started taking drugs as a teenager in the UK. And then in 97, I started dealing. And then 2002 was when I got caught. So it was over 10 years before I got caught. At the back.
What sports were there, like in the yard?
The sports in the prison yard were the typical American sports, and this was in the lower security levels where you had access to this stuff, like baseball, horseshoes, this game where you throw these horseshoes. Basketball was huge. And the Americans, I joke with the Americans, I say, look, over in the UK, basketball is called netball, and the girls play it, and baseball's called rounders, and the girls play it, and the prison, they weren't too happy about that. Yeah. If I could change one thing with the American prison system, I personally believe that prisons need to go back to being prisons and putting people in who are hurting other people. Murderers, robbers, rapists, paedophiles. That's how crime has been defined for millennia. But in the last century, prisons became warehouses for non-violent drug offenders. Now, I'm not making excuses for my crimes. I was a dealer, I deserve to be in there. But when most arrests in America are for young people smoking weed, and they get thrown into prison, almost 1 million arrests a year, where they get turned on to heroin and crystal meth, and they could get raped and robbed and murdered, and they make criminal connections, and they become real criminals. To me, that's absurd. It's an absolute disaster. A young person who's taking drugs shouldn't be doing drugs because it can damage the brain, and that person should be referred to mental health. It should not be a case of throwing them into a prison where all these bad things could happen to them, and the drug problem is just going to be made worse. Yeah.
Were there a lot of women in jail?
Women never used to go to prison because of drug laws. Hundreds of thousands of non-violent drug offenders have been put in the prisons, and I had women co-defendants, and they said where they were at. The women, it wasn't more of a gang structure. Women actually formed families, so there'd be a butch lesbian would be the dad, lipstick lesbian's the mum, and the young women coming in would be the children, and then they formed a unit and protected each other. And some women lifers actually got pregnant to male guards consensually. Lots of the times they'd have miscarriages because they were so malnourished. But on the occasions when they did carry the babies to term, whoever was getting released next, they just hand over the baby to that person and say, have a nice life. And that's how it worked. Okay. Any more questions? We're almost there.
Perfect, yeah.
All right, we're at the end. Thank you very much for all your questions. Cheers, thank you.